Greetings everyone, welcome to the first season of the first episode of Sitting Down with Dwyrin. I'm Dwyrin, and on this show, I get to sit down with some of the fine folks in the Go community and ask them some questions that have been on my mind, ask them some questions that have been on your mind, and all around, get to know them a little bit better than I did previously. Would like to remind everyone that the show is made possible thanks to your continued support, and on that note, let's meet our first guest. Andrew Jackson, thank you for joining me here today to answer a few questions about how the U.S Go Congress coverage went. For those of you who may not be aware of who Andrew Jackson is, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I've been volunteering with the AGA for a few years now, and I sort of my job is to figure out how to get things done. So I do a lot of the technical work. Like I just recently rewrote the AGA games database, and I'm trying to work on some of the ratings fixes that are coming up. And I ended up doing some of the video for this year after Chris Garlock on the eJournal team sort of asked me to figure out what would be capable in the space. And Josh Larson, the Congress director in Minneapolis, made it a real priority to do video. So he and Chris were both like, can you figure out how to do this? Can we get a stream going? What do you think we can do to make that happen? So that's me. And
all right, cool. But all right, yeah, like you mentioned, you did your fair share in getting the American Go Congress to actually be live this year for everyone to tune in and to enjoy. Yeah. I suppose my first question then to you is, this is obviously something that you haven't done before?
No.
This isn't like what you do, like you just like don't go from like tournament to tournament and like stream it?
No, that's right.
So must have been something like rather large for you. Is there anything about this that went surprisingly easier than you thought it was going to?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny, actually. Some things went really well, and some things really didn't go well. And I always knew that there would be some things that wouldn't go well, and that I wouldn't know what they were. Right. And I also knew that some things would go well, and that I probably wouldn't know in advance which were which. Right? Like I couldn't tell you ahead of time what was going to catch fire. And
hopefully nothing did.
Fire. What was that?
Hopefully nothing did.
Metaphorically, they caught fire and crashed and burned horribly. Actually, so the event that Josh Larson was most excited to have streamed and which had the most buzz was Hayley playing Nick. Like the Hayley Sabicki match was easily the number one reason why we were doing video streaming at all. And,
oh, really?
That was the one that crashed and burned the most. We can go into that later. So that was easily the biggest cock-up. The things that went really well, though, was that the system with the... So I don't know if you watched... Did you see my setup video?
I saw most of it.
Behind the scenes? Yeah, so we have one laptop in the game room that's streaming to another laptop. And that other laptop was running a Nginx RTMP server where it could pick up that feed and composite it in OBS, so we could composite that feed with the commentator's feed. And the thing that went the best was that game computer, that game laptop, basically ran without any supervision whatsoever.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I had originally planned that we would have two camera operators at all time, one person who would be in the game room operating that camera, and another person who would be in the commentary room running the commentary. And I just didn't have that many full-time volunteers. So one of the things that meant was that we could take the person who was going to be in the game room running that camera and bring them into the other room, and they would run OBS there. So that's Sean Ashish and Justin Tang Oddness. So Clausius Fargo and Clausius Fargo and Oddness, as you know them.
Right.
Which is pretty great, because either way, somebody was going to be in the game room where it was going to be about as exciting as being a game recorder. And instead, we were able to have basically everybody in the commentary room, which worked really well, because when we had, the pros ask us to do commentary, we could do that without having a shortage of camera operators. So
I see.
that was the other thing that went well. We had a question site. So it kind of went well and it kind of didn't go well. We had this great site where people could anonymously like post questions to the viewers.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was pretty cool. You know, they didn't need to sign up. They didn't need an account. They just basically had a text box where they could post questions and vote on them. Which were the most important.
That actually, when I found out that's how you were doing, I'm like, oh yeah, just like anonymous questions being sent. I'm like, is that a good idea?
It was
like
such
you just
a good idea.
ask the internet to just anonymously ask whatever they want on
Right.
video.
And also, I figured having people vote on it would make the questions that were at the right level, you know, rise to the top.
Yeah.
But honestly, we had really low participation. So while the system worked pretty well, people didn't go to the link, or the questions didn't pair with the Go board. Like,
that's actually something that I was wanted to ask you about, because I know I've had a chance to talk to both X298 as well as Colossius about like what they enjoyed and didn't enjoy at the Congress, and if there anything that maybe I should be asked, because I've let them both know that I was going to be like talking to you, and if they had any questions that they wanted to like fire through me at you. And one that came up from I think both was the questions thing, and that it seemed that it seemed like one of like a really good idea, but it's kind of hard getting people to go to another website even if it's for something related. And that there was like a lot more conversation in the actual chat.
That's right, in the YouTube chat. That's right, which I think actually, you know, so when Steve Colburn was our camera operator, he did a really good job of surfacing those questions to us, because I was on the other side of the camera, which was not where I anticipated being. Like,
right.
It was really, because I was waiting for things to like catch fire and break horribly, and everything would shut down, and I'd be like, "What's happening?"
The camera just fell on a Go board.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone blames you. It was the tournament match.
My nightmare was that the camera would just anyway, worse than like dreaming about like giving a speech naked or something. It is awful.
In that case, that leads into my other question, and you can't cheat and say the Nick Sabicki and Hayley game, but is there anything that went like surprisingly bad? Like you thought this would be like no problem, and then just...
Well, that one obviously, and I'll go into that with more detail. But the other one was the pros. I think it was. It's always a difficult process organizing how the pros do which events, and you know, pro coordinator is like a full-time job at the Congress. Because
you just don't draw straws?
No, they don't draw straws. They have, you know, their own scheduling vagaries, and generally we try and give the pros whatever they want. Like they're VIPs, and we rearrange things so that they can have things however they like them the best. And don't mistake, pros they're all lovely people. They're doing us a great help by being there. And it's sort of more like being their personal assistant. Like they have a lot of things will come up at the last minute. You know, one will go hoarse, one will be sick, you know, and you have to shuffle things. So we didn't actually know which pros would be doing commentary going into it. And that was it meant that we had to be very prepared for and to do things flexibly. So one of the things that I had planned on doing was I figured that most pros would be doing this in front of a demo board. But actually, so before we did the commentary, we were told who our pro was going to be for the day, and we asked them 3 questions. We said, how do you want to, or we asked them 2 questions. We said, how do you want to do your commentary? You can use a laptop and like go through variations on KGS or something. And we would be prepared to do that with OBS. We said, do you want to use a magnetic board, or do you want to use a table board where you're sitting down and you're like going through that? And every single pro opted to use the table board. Like that was without a doubt their favorite format. And I had totally expected that they would want to use the magnetic demo board. So we were using like the backup camera boom, and we needed to find an extra camera, and that was... Anyway, I hadn't realized that was the most popular option, but I didn't exactly do like a pro survey ahead of time. And the other question that we asked them was, we said, how do you want to use a partner for the commentary? And they did all say yes, they wanted to use a partner for the commentary, and that was the other really difficult part, because there aren't a lot of people who wanted to sit out the open.
So you weren't expecting that?
I was not expecting that at all.
Oh.
And this dovetails into why it was so good that we didn't need to leave anyone in the game room.
Right.
It's because that meant that freed people up. So like Yeon has worked with Sean Ray, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're buds. So she totally asked Sean Ray to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that worked out really well because I could run the camera while they were doing their thing. But by and large, like that was the most stressful part, trying to find who would do that.
I'm actually a little bit surprised to hear that, actually, because I had assumed that it was always going to be assumed that there would always be two people doing that, because, I mean, depending on how long a game goes, I mean, you could be there like an hour just talking to yourself.
Yeah, well, we actually thought that the pros would want to work with each other. Like, we had a lot of pros, and
so you had to pair them up and have both of them cast.
I had figured that the pros would want to play together, but as part of the scheduling, they were like, no, we should totally have an amateur player around. Which, again, like I said, that took me by surprise. I figured that they would want to do that another way.
Yeah, I actually remember from our correspondence that, now I think about it, that is what you had originally anticipated happening. That's why you said, like, we don't need other casters to come, because they're going to pair up and it's all going to be good and covered.
Right, right, and that was, anyway, we rolled with the punches as best we could. I think that, one of the things the other thing that went wrong that I had hoped we would do better was providing more of horse race updates, talking about who is going to be in the title contention and who is going to be, who was competing who was at the top of the brackets, who was in the running. Because we did have some pretty exciting stuff. Like, it was a really strong field this year. Like, we had a number of these active Chinese professionals who were very
I saw their games.
Favorites. What was that?
Yeah, I was definitely paying attention to their games. They were really good.
They were so good. And, I had a little conversation with Mark Lee before the tournament started, and he said, with Evan Cho. With Evan Cho. And he said that his goal was to get third this year.
Wow.
And if Evan Cho is saying he wants to get third,
yeah.
Wow, all right. We got ourselves a fight. And, when Mark Lee upset Tong Yulin, that was pretty amazing to see. But we weren't able to do that in a large part, I think, because we didn't have a lot of extra bandwidth just to do that kind of. You almost needed like a writer to do the analysis in between rounds, and it's tough also because once the games are over, like it was a full schedule. I barely had time to get some food before the next thing would start or the next event would happen. And
right. Before we go into essentially like what you would have redone or what you would do in the future, one thing that you mentioned was how the professionals chose who was going to cast like which game. Did they have? Really, you said that you were told who was going to cast, right?
What was that?
You were told who was going to cast one game. Like they came to you and decided which pro was going to be doing which game.
No. So what happened was the schedule was set the first day. So they set who was going to be casting the morning and the evening, who was going to be doing commentary the morning and the evening games. And so I had suggested, to the pro coordinator, who might want to do it. And he apparently followed up and asked them.
I see.
So one of the reasons that the Hayley Sibicki thing flamed out so badly was that it was a totally different audio-visual staff. And there were a couple reasons. That was one of them. One of the others was that we ended up moving it to a larger venue. Like, we thought, my original plan was that they would be in the video rooms that we had already had set up. But we tried to move it to a place where they could, where everyone could watch and ask questions. Yeah. Which, we had like 90 people watching Hayley do her thing, which was great. I mean, for the people who were there, I'm so heartbroken that I didn't manage to get it streamed well for anybody else. But
it is available on YouTube. You can actually watch. Like, I know that Nick has gone over the game and reviewed it.
I think we ended up taking down the videos because they were just a slideshow.
I don't remember if Hayley's given her own review on the game. I think it's just Nick.
I don't think she has.
One thing that I noticed that you mentioned is that you always wanted an amateur being there with the pro. They wanted to to co-cast with an amateur and not a professional.
Right.
I did notice that both X98 and Colossus were both there. Is there a reason why you didn't go with either of them more for the co-casting?
So I put the decision to the pros, and that's that was up to them, who they wanted to work with and who they were comfortable with, right? And Exu was playing in the open games, so that was not something that he had. So he was out for the morning games, and for the evening games, that, like I said, it was up to the pros. So I know that Sean did the commentary with Yeon because he had that relationship with her, and I don't know. It's flattering when they say please do this, but at the same time you're kind of like, I would have preferred being on the other side of the camera rather than.
Isn't it also possible that they're saying please do this because they don't know anyone else, and this might be a good time to introduce them to some other people?
No, I think that these all of these pros have been at the Congress for a long time. I think, and that was the thing. I know Stephanie had a list of several people who she wanted to work with. Hayley really wanted to cast with Nick, and Nick really wanted to play in the open. And she was on all of the morning slots, so that was kind of worked that way. I asked Jenny Shen, who does a lot of work with Weichi TV. She has a bunch of students, and I was like, don't you want to work with them? Believe me, I want someone else to do it next year. So I had a great time. It was fun. It was way more stress than I wanted, and I wish that had been there.
At least you got to get a chance to look at some games and review them up close and personal.
Yeah, that's true. It was a useful experience, but it was kind of.
And I'm sure you learned a lot from the games themselves.
Maybe. It was kind of a blur. I went back and I had to rewatch a lot of the videos because while it was useful, I was focused on trying to keep the conversation moving, trying to manage what's happening on the board, trying to ask good questions. It was really, I don't think I held on to much of it. I wish, I wish I had held on to more of it. It was great to go back and watch. So for instance, I loved watching the video that Sean did with Yeon. I thought they had a great chemistry.
She was amazing. She was just excited for every move that was put on the board.
Cool? So actually it's really funny how the Myungwon and Yeon ended up commenting the last round. It was originally going to be Myungwon Kim who was going to do the last round. And they started playing a new Joseki in the lower left corner. And, they were watching. So, we had them show up about a half an hour before the commentary was going to start, to sort of review the game and look at what was going on. So, Myungwon shows up at 9:30. He's drinking his coffee. He's watching the game. And he sees the new variation. He goes, oh, I haven't seen this. This will be hard. And he goes next door to where Yeon is about to do the commentary for the e-journal on board 2. Right? So, they also were doing commentary for board 2, which was radio style commentary, the KGS Plus voice.
Yeah.
Did you catch any of that?
That I didn't catch, no.
I didn't see any of it, and it's not on YouTube, and it's mostly gone, right? So that's part of the other goal of having this stuff done as video. So he goes next door and he grabs Yeon, who's getting ready to do the board 2 commentary, and brings her back over, and they start going at it in Korean, talking about this new Joseki that is apparently a new development, and they're talking about it and discussing it, and they figured that that there was a mistake, that Tim, I think, made a mistake in the Joseki. And Yeon was getting so excited about it. Anyway, it was great. And so Yeon goes next door and she basically tells him, I don't want to comment that game. I want to comment this game. So they're like, okay, I guess. Can we do that? So I'm like, I don't know. So I have to reset the cameras and change the scenes and adjust all the titles. And it's 15 minutes before we say commentary is going to begin. And I'm like, why are we changing everything? It's the last day, everything. Why are we doing this,
So what happened with the other game then? Because she was supposed to do the other board. Did anyone cover that?
I don't think anybody covered that one on KGS.
Did you just drag some Q who was done with this game? It's stare at this and talk.
Chris Garlock was supposed. Well, actually, we ended up doing 2 games on the review board, in that video, I think. And Chris Garlock was supposed to like transcribe the comments or something. I don't. Honestly, it was a blur. By that point, I was really sick, and so I don't know if you see the video, but I feel like it's Yeon and Myungwon basically, they're excitedly talking about it. I'm trying to hold on and be like, "Hey, wait, slow down, explain things." Anyway, but yeah, so it was. I know also like by Friday, Sean was gone, so Sean did Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I think he had the mornings off and was doing something else. So anyway, I don't know. Gotta be there to have things happen that way. If Xu wants to do commentary, I think that he was able to meet a bunch of pros. Like I know he had Cho Ye-yeon came over and said that she watched his videos, which I think he was gonna like melt through the floor. He seemed very excited about it.
Oh,
it was adorable.
Yeah, he's always really adorable in his streams. That would have been really great if like
Wouldn't that been awesome?
Nick or Sean like got a shot of him like just like reacting. Then that would have been great.
Would have been amazing. Anyway, he was kind of like stunned. It was great. I hope they do it next year. I think it could work out really well.
Next thing I wanted to ask you was what you intend to do differently next time. Like now that you've had some experience like actually casting this, if you're like, or not just casting, but like setting this up, putting things together. Like next year, Congress rolls around. They're like, "Hey, you're in charge of everything again." Like, what do you do differently?
Okay, so with any luck, that is not going to be what happens. I would be seriously. I have no intention of doing this again. I think we'll see.
It was that much fun, huh?
Yeah, it was stressful.
Take a few years off your life.
Yeah, and the feedback was generally pretty good, but we didn't. Even now, like I see people be like, "Well, you didn't stream it on Twitch. That was terrible," or like, "Well, this wasn't visible in Germany because you streamed it on YouTube." It's like, actually, we did get it whitelisted for Germany. So,
did you actually get confirmations that went through though? Were they actually able to tune in from Germany?
Yeah, we had people from Germany in the stream talking to us. Hey, I'm so glad this works, and yet we still get all this. I don't know.
Okay.
Hostility.
So then, is there anything that you would change for next year, or would you tell whoever's going to like come after you, like, don't do this, do this instead?
So I've got a whole list of things. The first is I'd love to get a schedule of which pros are doing commentary at the beginning of the week, and make sure that they have the commentators that they want to do. I would love to have like, if not a writer, somebody who's like helping to assemble that roundup beforehand. The easiest thing is I'd get a second mic stand, because like the light with the zip tied camera, that was, like I said, that was my backup, right? Like I was expecting people would be using the magnetic boards, and nobody did that. So
great setup though. Anytime like anyone's like MacGyvering something together in order to get it to work, I'm a fan of hearing all about that. That was great.
So selfie stick zip tied to a lamp was, I mean, it worked. But it meant a lot of setup. Like I lost a lot of time getting things set up well, and getting the lines all worked. So let's see. What happened? We weren't able to. This sounds like a silly thing, but we had the board on top of a tablecloth, which meant that we couldn't like tape the board down because the tablecloth itself would slide. So like some way to have the board fixed.
So it's always in frame.
Yeah, so because frequently the players would they'd sit down and they'd just adjust the board and they're not thinking about it, and that's fine.
Right.
We can't stop that, but we can actually use some two-sided tape the bottom of the board down, won't hurt the wood, and it would make my life so much less stressful.
Put a slight electrical charge into the board. If they touch it, they get shocked, so they don't do that again.
Exactly. Man, players. Let's see, what else was it? I would get better microphones. We were using USB microphones that worked fairly well, but I think that a USB mixer with actual standard mics would have made it easier if we had to switch to auditoriums, which we did for the Hayley-Nick
slide
thing.
A little bit to your, what is that?
Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So some pro microphones and a USB mixer instead is much. So I'd priced video mixing equipment, and that was just way too expensive.
Yeah, that you're gonna get $100 for that.
Yeah. Let's see. So what else did we have? There was a camera that had saturation. Oh, the number one thing is editing scenes offline. I don't know if OBS is going to add it by next year. If they don't, we'll have to evaluate. Wirecast, I think, is the next one that looks like the most affordable for the AGA. They have, because you can get like a month license or something like that. But that's probably would make it easiest to do the sorts of things that we want to do with like lower thirds. Each time I see like the names move around or something, I kind of like cringe.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's okay. It's okay for what it is, which is a live stream, but it's definitely not like it's a professionally produced video event. So I think that you can get rid of a lot of that if you can edit scenes before you switch to them. So that would be my favorite. We still didn't have that many people tuning in live as I would like. Like we topped out. We didn't break 200 people. We got pretty close, but we didn't actually break 200 people. And that was kind of disappointing. I think that, in years past, I know that KGS has had like 500 observers. And this year, the observers on KGS were down, and the observers on YouTube were also down. And
that actually I'm not surprised about, because what you're probably getting is at least half of the people who would be on KGS usually on the YouTube channel and not following along on KGS itself.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
So, like, you're splitting that audience?
Cannibalized each other.
Yeah.
That's definitely possible, and I don't know if there's a good way around that, but I had kind of been hoping that there were a bunch of people that would watch but can't watch on KGS because of Java or other reasons. And so I was expecting that there would be more viewers. But on the other hand, it was also our first year, so maybe next year there's...
One other thing that would probably be good to get up viewership is to have a series of, like, maybe, I don't know, like in July or something, you just like have something that's streamed every Monday at this time on that on whatever channel, so they just like get in the habit of checking the channel at this time.
That's a great idea. I think that I'd been trying doing the sort of like the Let's Be Frank stuff, but that was all on my channel.
Yeah.
And we didn't really figure out who had control of the AGA channel. There was.
Again, if you were going to be... Let's see, were you actually streaming that on your YouTube channel, or was that on Twitch? Because I remember you being on Twitch for a while.
I was doing both. I was testing both. So, like, that whole thing was an evaluation process to see which ones worked better, how to make it work. I liked using Twitch a lot. The problem that I had there was I wanted to stream at as high quality as I could.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if we were going to be able... So that was the biggest reason we used YouTube. It wasn't, any of the Google, anything like that. It was just that I wanted to stream at 1080 and not have to deal with people who couldn't watch it as a result of that. Yeah. And
actually, there's sorry to cut you off. That's not nice, but there's actually something that I've been noticing lately. Whenever I've been doing my streams, I've actually been getting quality options. Like after you hit a certain amount of views on Twitch, they just give it to you.
Right, and that would be awesome. But like we didn't have that view. Like this was going to be on the AGA's Twitch channel if there was one. And it wasn't going to have that kind of setup, right? So, I mean, there was no guarantee that we would have the numbers to hit it because they're not, like, explicit. Like, we don't have any specific guidance, whereas I know that YouTube did that guaranteed. Right. Like, I think that Twitch's plan is to offer that sort of re-encoding option to everyone, but it wasn't there, and then, I'm trying to eliminate as many variables as I can, right? Like, I know for a fact that that'll work on YouTube. I don't know what I'm going to have to go through, and it's kind of like not objective, right? It's like, do you have enough? Well, how many is enough? I don't know.
I'm actually about to ask you about that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I think I remember you saying that you were looking forward to like getting some interviews out there while you were at the Congress. Interviewing either... No, not you, but having like someone else like do interviews and like get that out there. But I think I saw one interview. Did that like fall through? Because I've heard stories that you were having trouble getting translations. From,
no. So what happened there was Kevin Huang, the guy who did the interviews that you saw, was trying to set up doing interviews. He's worked as a volunteer so he volunteers, he talks to the pro coordinator, he says, I'm a volunteer translator. So the Congress has to put together a team of translators. And Kevin has been one of these translators for the last few years. And he wanted to do some interviews with a number of the pros who were visiting, because we had these active pros, and it's hard to find the time like during the week. So he was able to, like I said, here are 2 blocks on Tuesday and Friday where the camera is all yours. I'll run it, do whatever you want, and part of that is just making everybody's schedules line up. It's tricky to get all the things you want to get done. I think he was pretty happy to get the interviews that he was able to get done up there, but those, we had Cho Ye-yeon, who was really excited to challenge Tong Yulin to a match. That was another thing that sort of like threw off all of the plans for when the interviews were going to happen, and it was, anyway, I don't really know how that all happened. I know that was Kevin's project, so Kevin wanted to do the interviews and was like, when can I do this? And I was like, here's what I can do for you.
And these videos, if they come up, they're going to be on the YouTube site, YouTube channel, the AJ?
Yeah, I think the goal is to put them on the AJ YouTube channel.
Which would also probably be a good point, in case someone hasn't noticed by now. You guys can always look in the comment or like down below in the description for like links to anything that we're referring to here, including the AJ's channel, and probably the channels of some of the other people who have been involved and we've been referring to. All of that stuff you can find down below.
Right.
This kind of goes back to trying to get more people to tune in. Like, I've noticed in other scenes, like your StarCraft or your whatever esport, there's always like this narrative that's trying to be put forward, so you know who's playing, like why you should care about them.
Totally.
Would you say that the next Go Congress might be focused a little bit more on getting to know the player, so we know why we should care about the game? Do you?
I really think it's a great idea. I know that you'd talked about doing it, and I wish you'd been there to do it, because I didn't have the time to do it. I didn't have the bandwidth. I'm trying to make sure things aren't falling over. I really think that kind of coverage can add a lot of interest to the story. Like, I think that we're kind of seeing. So, like, all the first 3 videos had Mark Lee in them, and they got more views than the next ones. Like, for whatever reason, people love seeing Mark Lee,
right?
Because he's sort of someone who they've seen before. Mark Lee, his Tendan status, he's kind of had this mythos. Whereas our new players visiting from China, nobody knew who they were. So I thought it was pretty interesting to see that there's still so much more traffic on those videos.
He's also appeared in tournaments that you can find actually online. Like, he's been involved in the Creators Invitational, when you you might already be following his games there and seeing like what his record is and
watching him kick ass. Yeah. So I think that would definitely be one area that we can expand the coverage. I'm really curious to see where it goes, because this was the first year, and we were showing that it can be done. And I think that going into next year, I think that the e-journal is looking to make that a more dominant area of their coverage because of the good reception it got.
Yeah, I would definitely like to help with that next year. The reason why I didn't this year is because, like, maybe I completely misunderstood our correspondence, but I was under the impression that, like, you were good with that. Like, Colossus going to be there, and like he was going to be in charge of all that stuff. And I'm like, well, it's kind of like a bit redundant. Maybe like didn't need me this year. So
no, we definitely needed you. Again, I think that the problem was that I couldn't make a lot of promises. Right, like. I assumed that the pros would be doing commentary with the other pros.
Yeah.
Right? And so I assumed that would be the format, and that we were just going to be helping the pros do their thing, rather than doing the pro-am kind of commentary. And I think that on top of that, I didn't have a budget this year. I was doing this sort of as a Skunkworks thing, where it was an independent thing. I wasn't really, Chris Garlock and the e-journal weren't really running it. And there wasn't a budget for comps. So, the volunteers who helped make this possible, Justin and Ashish and Sean, they were crucial. Steven did a great job doing all the graphics for us. But at the same time, I have nothing to give them except thanks. So.
And more than thanks, viewers, I do want to point out again, you can give more than your thanks. You can check out the links down below and give these people who did volunteer their time your views, your follows, be it on their Twitter or YouTube pages. feel free to go ahead, click them, and do so. I'm sure they'll be really, really appreciative that you've done
Definitely.
so. I think that's about it. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add about the coverage or anything that we've gone over?
I don't know. I think that kind of covers it. I'm bummed that our correspondence left you with that impression.
Yeah, that's kind of that's. And I'll probably be cutting this from the video, but again, that's kind of why I kept trying to. Sometimes I repeated myself, are you sure this is the way you want it? And the impression I got was oh yeah, it's
Well, the impression I kept getting from you was that you needed to get comp. You needed to get money for this.
I was trying to give I needed a reason to go. I needed to know that I was going to be doing something because I would be essentially my subscribers would essentially be funding the entire thing. I needed to make certain they were going to get something out of it as well. I think they just needed to know that I was there and doing something.
Sure.
And I'm contributing in this fashion and from what the impression that I got essentially was that if I went, I would be probably a transcriber, and that was probably about it unless something broke.
My understanding was that was only going to be that was what you needed to do to get a comp. Because I was saying the video will help, but I don't have a budget, so if you need money, you need to do something else. The way
I was under the impression. Yeah, I misunderstood. I thought that's all you needed help with. This
we should have done this through video call rather than email. Probably would have been easier.
Probably, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think we should do differently next year? I guess maybe I should start with what was if you caught the coverage, was there some parts that you thought worked better? What was your favorite thing to watch?
One thing, like I mentioned, I absolutely loved Sean's cast because the pro he was paired up with was absolutely amazing. I would have if I had. I definitely would have sat her down and asked her, who did you eat in order to get all of this extra energy?
Right. You're man,
who do I have to kill to be like this about my own Go?
Right. 3 cappuccinos or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what her secret is, but she can probably make money off of it, whatever it is.
That's right.
So that's definitely what I would do. The narrative about the players is vitally important because that's partially why you're tuning in.
Sure.
I've seen threads. I'm not gonna say where, though I know you've seen them too.
I've probably seen them too.
One of the big controversies right now for the European Go players, let's say, is people don't know who they are, and so they don't tune in to see what their results are. And the reason for that is because there's not this narrative. I don't know who was in this tournament or that tournament or who this guy is, what he's done, etc., etc., etc. So without building that personal connection, I'm probably a little bit less interested to tune into an amateur match. Definitely. Rather than if there was this brand new professional that I've never heard of, but they were doing well, I'm probably going to hear about it. I don't care about them. They have great games. I'm going to tune in.
Right.
I don't really have to know the exact. But for an amateur, definitely need to know you definitely need to establish that personal connection to tune into their games.
I think sort of a who's who on the Masters section. I know that a lot of that made it into the e-journal in the text updates, where they sort of did some bios on the players. But I know we didn't do any of that in the video commentary, which is...
There is one thing that kind of irked me a little bit. Again, this is it can't really fault it. This is the first time this has really been something that you've covered. But
no, we need all the feedback we can get.
I think either at some point in every video, before it ended, thanking the people who were transcribing, thanking the people who were doing casting, anyone involved with creating that, it would have been nice to see their own personal thanks in the video. That would have been a nice little gesture.
That's smart.
That was a little bit absent. I did notice it, but again, I'm I tune into a lot of esports events where that's just something that always occurs. So when it didn't occur, it kind of just stuck. It's really stuck out.
Yeah, that's interesting. I probably totally didn't think of it that way because as soon as the cameras stop, I'm thank you. So. But now that I think of it, that's exactly the opposite of where it needs to be, right? It needs to be when the cameras are on, right? Because that's the part that's preserved. That's a great suggestion. I appreciate that. I'll make sure to put that in the list for Boston. So I guess what's coming up is the Changchi Cup is going to be in Boston next month, and the ACGA, the American College Go Association, is going to be televising it.
Oh.
So not me. I'm shipping off all the cameras. I'm shipping off the laptops. I'm sending it all off to Boston, where they're gonna.
You're not quitting your day job to do this full time?
Oh man, no. I think that I'd rather have people give their Patreon money to you and to Nick and to Sean. That's for sure. Like, I think that would be, yeah. I don't need. I think you guys are doing a great job, and I'm not interested in competing. That sounds fabulous. But yeah, I'm going to send this off to the guys in Boston, and they're going to do a cast of that tournament, which is going to be great. I don't know if you are you familiar with what's coming up here?
I am not familiar. No.
Yeah, so the Chinese Changchi Cup is a major tournament, like a professional tournament.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
They're playing the semifinals at Harvard University for some reason.
Okay.
So they're playing a round of the semifinals with like 4 of the top 10 players in the world right now are going to be at Harvard at the end of September, and it's part of the Ing Foundation is working with the ACGA, and they want to have a large amateur tournament there as well. So I'm going to fly out there, and actually I think I'm going to sort of, I don't want to say serve in an advisory role, but if anything breaks, they can blame me for it. So that'll work out really well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, totally. That's what I'm here for, man. And they're working on doing the stream, and they're gonna have an opportunity to fix a bunch of the stuff that we did wrong at the Congress. And They have a bunch of people who have been Twitch streaming Hearthstone and League and stuff like that. So
all right, well, Andrew, then.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for setting this up, since I apparently forget to do that. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Definitely thank you for joining me and answering some of my questions today. That was really nice of you to take time out and do that. I really do appreciate it. A lot of people have been asking me questions, both in my stream and elsewhere. I'm like, I don't know. Did you see me there? I can't ask, but aha! I'll get the person who did.
Yeah, dude. Well, I really hope we see you next year.
I really hope I can go too. So again, thank you for joining me. Very much appreciate it. And good luck with the future streams.
Thanks. If you ever want to volunteer for the AGA, volunteer for the AGA, everybody.
Indeed.
Do your Go problems.